John Richards of Anti-Theism International, and I have with me today Stephen Law. Now, he is the recently retired reader in philosophy at a London University college, and he is, I believe, still editor of Think. I don't think he's retired from that. Think is the Royal Institute of Philosophy's journal, and here he is. Speak of the devil. How the devil are you, Stephen?
I'm very well, thank you, John. Yeah, Think is one of the two journals of the Royal Institute of Philosophy. Think is aimed at the general public.
So you haven't retired from that. You're retaining.
Yeah, I'm still quite busy. I mean, I'm writing. I'm doing a lot of public speaking. I do stuff at Oxford Literary Festival, and so I've got plenty to do.
Well, absolutely. When I retired, when I took my pension, I had a choice. I could either learn to smoke a pipe and wear a pair of slippers and watch daytime TV, or I could plot and hatch plans and things, and I went for the latter.
Yeah, I'm not watching much daytime TV at the moment.
No. We've invited you, and you've kindly agreed, to speak at the Anti-Theism International Convention at Brighton, which is on the first weekend of April. And we've invited you particularly because of your publications about distinguishing false beliefs from the truth. It's a bit of a problem in this day and age, isn't it? Fake news.
Yes. Yeah. But I think it was always a problem, actually. Decades ago, before I became an academic, I was a postman. After I left school, I became a postman. I don't have A levels, and I took that job. So I used to do deliveries. Used to go out on my bike, and one delivery used to take me past a house which there was a woman who clearly had some sort of mental health issue. The garden was filled with rubbish, and she was very unkempt and dirty. Mm-hmm. She used to come out and disrobe partially and do these strange exercises, and it was all very sad, and I felt kind of sorry for her. And then one of the tabloid newspapers got hold of this, and they turned it into a story about a brunette who used to titillate her neighbours by exercising topless in her garden. What's wrong? Floor, and what's wrong with that? And so I was shocked by the way that they had taken a tiny kernel of truth and built this whole fictional story, titillating story around it, and that was a real eye-opener for me. That was sort of early 1980s. I suddenly realised that newspapers could probably do this all the time, and more or less without any comeback, because the little people are concerned.
Well,
it's always been like that, it seems to me. And for decades, newspaper front pages have talked about immigrants and Europe and so on. There's been a steady drip, encouraging people to, with anecdotal evidence. So look at this immigrant that did a terrible thing. Now look at this immigrant. They also did a terrible thing. So they build up a picture of immigrants by constantly cherry picking some bad stories and sexing them up a bit and repeating them over and over again on front pages. And in that way, they have managed to create an extremely toxic attitude amongst parts of the general public, to the point where I suspect that probably had more to do with, say, the result of the Brexit referendum than did anything that happened more recently on social media. People are very concerned about what's going on social media now, and you're right to be concerned, but the fact is that our press, it's a sewer, and they have been doing this for decades, and the effects are quite extraordinary. So I'm very concerned about that. But there's an important way, I suppose, that things have changed, and that is that it's not that long ago when, if you were the Prime Minister and you stood up in Parliament and told a barefaced lie, most people would get to know about it. In one way or another, the news would seep out. Even the right-leaning newspapers, if it was a Tory MP, would probably let the public know that something wasn't quite right there. Whereas nowadays we have a Prime Minister who can stand up and say that the number of children in poverty has dropped by 400,000 when it's gone up by 500,000. And although there's a little circle of people who know that that's a lie, they're all talking to each other. And the people that the lie was aimed at, they will never get to find out that it was a lie. I just picked this up yesterday because it was on the news feed I've got. So I just went to check whether that had been picked up by, for example, the BBC, who you would expect to be fact-checking and aggressively revealing the truth. And
I wish.
Nothing. Not a peep from them about the fact that this is our Prime Minister standing up and just lying. And so he will get away with it. A lot, I know about it. I know he's lying. You may know he's lying. But the vast majority of the people at whom that lie was aimed will never find out that he's lying. And I think that is the change. That's what's changed. That we're now more insulated from each other, and there are these bubbles that we tend to occupy, and we don't find out about other points of view. And in particular, our press seems to be even more craven, frankly, towards people like our current Prime Minister, even more willing to indulge him and not to call him out and to just soft pedal or even just ignore the fact that he's just telling barefaced lies. That's because now that culture then encourages more lies. I mean, why does Boris Johnson get up and lie? Because he knows they'll let him go.
Whereas it's always been necessary to be sensational in order to sell copy, when it was on paper, there was none of this confirmation bias circular feedback that you've been talking about. If you wanted to interact, you had to write a postcard. The whole thing took a long time.
Yeah, no, that's true, isn't it? Yes, you can chip in and give your 2 pennyworth on Twitter or wherever it might happen to be. And so can the bots, of course.
Yeah. Anyway, you're doing something towards combating this by writing books, like, for example, this one.
Yes, yep. I'm responsible for that. Yep.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, well, it's a book that sets out sort of 8 warning signs that you're approaching an intellectual black hole. If you walk down the high street, certainly my high street, there are some very weird people who will attempt to persuade you that their very strange religion is true, or that their very odd political party is the way forward. And they can be very persuasive, and before you know it, you can find yourself feeling drawn in towards this little intellectual bubble of belief. And once you're in, it can be very difficult to think your way out again. They're kind of self-sealing bubbles of belief. Intellectual black holes past the event horizon are impossible, or at least very difficult to think your way out again. So I wrote a book sort of flagging up the warning signs that you're approaching one of these cultural objects which can turn you into their intellectual prisoner. That was the aim of the book. And so some of them are religions, of course, and so I enjoyed pointing out some of the more obvious religious examples, but not just religions. There are all sorts of belief systems that can make us willing dupes and intellectual prisoners. Yeah.
Yes, there are other sorts of nonsense as well, aren't there? But do you find that having such people on the street is a bit of a new phenomenon? I mean, I can remember back further than you, and it never used to happen in this country. It seems to have grown over my lifetime. Is that your experience?
I don't know, to be honest. I can't say I've noticed it increasing. They've been around a long time. In fact, if anything, they're toning it down a bit now. So, for example, the Jehovah's Witnesses no longer call themselves the Jehovah's Witnesses. They just have a little subtle JW.
Yes.
Because they know that
it's a turn-off.
And they wait for people to come to them. They don't do the very aggressive spiel that some of them used to do. So I think if anything, they've learnt perhaps to tone it down a little bit. That group, at least. But others have got megaphones, of course.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I suppose it depends where you are, because I had some JWs at the door a little while ago, and they asked me if I wanted to know the truth, and I said to them, "Well, I'm a science teacher. I probably know it better than you do." So there you go.
I enjoy a good chat with the Jehovah's.
Yes. Now, you've got other books, though, because you've made a bit of a mission, haven't you, of making philosophy accessible to the general public and including children. I've got some of your other books which are aimed at children.
Well, my first book, actually, was called The Philosophy Files, and then I wrote a second volume, and so now it's combined into one book called The Complete Philosophy Files, and that was just aimed at young people who are very often naturally drawn to philosophy. They don't know that's what it is, of course, necessarily, but they spontaneously ask philosophical questions, how do I know that this is real and not the Matrix? How do I know my parents are real and not virtual? What makes things right or wrong? Could a robot think? Why is there something rather than nothing? And what makes that right or wrong? Or where does morality come from? These are questions that kids will spontaneously ask.
Yeah.
And so I just wrote a book based around the questions, looking at some of the different answers using cartoon imagery and jokes and dialogue, just to unpack some of the key arguments, not giving them answers necessarily, but just allowing them to explore the arguments on either side in as engaging a way as I could. And I wrote it really for the sort of young version of me, because I've always been fascinated by those kind of questions. I've always enjoyed pushing the envelope and thinking about the stuff right at the edge, at the outer limits of human knowledge, and walking on that narrow tightrope where you could easily fall off into, find yourself in big trouble. I enjoy those kind of intellectual encounters, and so I thought I would write a book for the younger me that would allow me the younger me to find out about philosophy.
You need to go back in time and read it now.
If I had a time machine, that's one of the chapters. Is time travel possible? Get away with it. Yeah.
So you've kindly accepted the invitation to speak at our convention, and I don't know whether you're aware, but if you go to the website, which is tickering along at the bottom here right now, you will see that we not only pay homage to a dead atheist, to Christopher Hitchens, in fact, but we also present awards to living ones. And in fact, in regards to Christopher Hitchens, Stephen Fry has just determined the winner of our competition to paint a portrait of Hitchens, and he's tweeted about this. I'm not going to give away who the winner is. You can go to the website and find that out. But also the awards there's 8 of them, and there's one, for example, for the Atheist Comedian, Best Atheist Comedian of 2020. Ricky Gervais is nominated for that, unsurprisingly. And go to the website and you'll see the other awards. But the top of the bill, if you like, is Richard Dawkins, who will be presented with the Lifetime of Service to Rationalism Award at the end of our banquet and ceremony, and he'll be presented by Lawrence Krauss. So this is going to be quite an event. Are you looking forward to it?
What a ridiculous question. Great. It's going to be great because, well, first of all, I love Brighton, so it'll be nice to go. And it'll also be great to meet face-to-face a lot of people that I've only ever really interacted with on the internet. So the amazing Alex, for example, I'm very much.
Oh, Alex. Yes, Alex will be there. Yes.
Yeah, good to see
Oh,
you.
epic.
Yeah, so obviously, yes, I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah.
Looking forward very much to seeing you at the first weekend of April in Brighton, and we'll have a drink together, shall we?
Yeah, definitely.
Good idea.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.